Look at this man's hands, 86 years old, blind for 12 years, and the city just sent him this. What I found when I started digging will make your blood boil. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a journalist. I'm just someone who saw an 86-year-old blind veteran standing outside hall with a sign that said, "Please help me understand." And when I stopped to ask what happened, what he told me made zero sense. So I started investigating. What I uncovered in the next 6 days wasn't just a mistake. It was systematic fraud that had been going on for years. This is Thomas Whitaker, Army veteran, served in Vietnam. Lost his sight gradually over 12 years due to diabetes-related complications. Lives alone in a small house his wife bought before she died. Survives on $1,847 a month in Social Security and veterans benefits. On March 3rd, Thomas received a notice from the city he owed $14,680 in parking violations. Violations that allegedly occurred over 18 months. Violations that, according to the city records, happened at locations Thomas had never been to. At times when Thomas was either at home at the VA hospital or at his weekly support group for blind veterans. Thomas doesn't own a car, hasn't owned one in 12 years, since the day his doctor told him his vision was gone and he'd never drive again. He sold his 1998 Toyota Camry to a dealership in 2012 for $3,200, but according to the city, that same car, with his old license plates, had been racking up parking tickets all over downtown. Red zones, handicap spaces, fire lanes, expired meters, and now they wanted $14,680 immediately, or they'd put a lien on his house. The house his wife had worked 2 jobs to buy. The house where her photos still hung on every wall. The only thing Thomas had left of the 43 years they'd spent together. I met Thomas on a Tuesday. By Sunday, I'd uncovered something that would shut down an entire division of the city government, but I had no idea what I was walking in to stop right here. Before we go deeper into this story, hit that like button right now. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. What you're about to hear is a real investigation that I personally conducted over 6 days. I filed 17 Freedom of Information requests. I interviewed 9 people. I found evidence of fraud involving over 40 victims and $340,000 in fraudulent fines. This isn't a news story I'm reporting. This is something I solved. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how I did it, step by step, so that if you or someone you know ever faces something like this, you'll know what to do, like this video. You're going to want to reference this, comment it below. Have you or someone you know ever been wrongly fined by the government? This happens more than you think. Now let me show you what I found. I saw Thomas outside City Hall because I had my own business there, paying a parking ticket, ironically. He was sitting on a bench with a handwritten sign propped against his white cane. I am blind and the city says I owe $14,000 for parking tickets. Please help me understand. Most people walk past. Some dropped change in a cup he didn't ask for, thinking he was panhandling. He wasn't. He was just lost in a bureaucratic nightmare he couldn't navigate alone. I sat down next to him. "Sir, can I read your paperwork?" Thomas handed me a manila envelope stuffed with violation notices. 67 tickets, all for the same vehicle. California license plate 7XJK392, a 1998 Toyota Camry. Violations dating from September 2022 to February 2024. "Mr. Whitaker, do you own this car?" "I sold it in 2012. 12 years ago. When I went blind, do you have proof you sold it?" "I don't know. Maybe. I haven't thought about that car in years." I took photos of every violation notice. Then I asked Thomas if I could come to his house and look through his files. He lived alone. His daughter lived in Oregon and visited twice a year. He had no one helping him fight this. Day Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Thomas's house was small, neat, and heartbreaking. Photos of his late wife everywhere. Her reading glasses still on the nightstand. A faded Army uniform in a frame. Everything organized because when you're blind, organization isn't optional. It's survival. We found his files in a kitchen drawer. Bank statements from 2012 showing on March 17, 2012, the same day as a bill of sale from Jim's Auto Sales for a 1998 Toyota Camry. License plate 7XJK392, Thomas had sold the car to a dealership 12 years ago. So who had been driving it and racking up parking tickets for the last 18 months? I photographed the bill of sale. Then I started mapping the violation locations, downtown parking structures, shopping districts, near the courthouse, near City Hall itself. And then I noticed something strange. 41 of the 67 tickets were written by the same parking enforcement officer, badge 2847. Officer name, M. Rodriguez. That's unusual. Parking enforcement officers have territories, but they rotate. One officer writing 61% of the tickets for the same vehicle over 18 months? That's not random. That's targeted. I wrote down Officer M. Rodriguez's badge number. Then I noticed something even stranger. Multiple tickets on the same day, sometimes minutes apart, at locations miles away from each other. September 14, 2023, 9:47 a.m. Ticket at 5th and Main, downtown, 10:03 a.m. Ticket at Lincoln and Broad, 4.7 miles away, 10:18 a.m. Ticket at Harbor Plaza, 2 miles from Lincoln. That's 3 tickets in 31 minutes at 3 locations spanning 11 miles. Even with no traffic, that's physically impossible unless the tickets were fake. Day 1, Tuesday, 9:20 p.m., I went home and couldn't sleep. Something was very wrong here. This wasn't bureaucratic error. This was deliberate. I decided to treat this like a real investigation. I made a timeline, I mapped every ticket location, I started building a case, and the next morning, I filed my first Freedom of Information Act request. Day 2, I filed FOIA requests for all parking violations issued to license plate 7XJK392 employment records for Officer M. Rodriguez, badge 2847 vehicle registration history for that license plate payment records. For those violations, I also did something most people don't think to do. I requested the photographs. Modern parking enforcement uses handheld devices that take photos of the violation. Every ticket should have a photo of the car, the violation, and the license plate. I wanted to see if the car in the photos matched a 1998 Camry. Day 3, I got a partial response. The DMV records showed that license plate 7XJK392 was registered to Thomas Whitaker until March 2012, when it was surrendered to the DMV after the vehicle sale. The plate should have been destroyed or reassigned, but according to the city's records, that same plate had been generating violations for 18 months. Red flag 1, the plate shouldn't exist anymore. I also received the violation photos. And what I saw made my jaw drop. The car in the photos was not a 1998 Toyota Camry. It was a 2015 Honda Civic. Different make, different model, different color. The only thing that matched was the license plate, which according to DMV records shouldn't have existed. Someone had fabricated a license plate with Thomas's old number and put it on a completely different car. Day 3, Thursday, 6:45 p.m. I went back to Thomas's house and showed him the photos. Mr. Whitaker, this isn't your car. Someone made a fake plate with your old number. Thomas was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Why would someone do that to me?" That's the question that haunted me. Why target an 86-year-old blind veteran? Day 4, I filed another FOIA request, this time asking for all vehicles ticketed by Officer M. Rodriguez in the last 2 years. I wanted to see if there was a pattern. I also started calling the phone number on the violation notices, the city's Parking Violations Bureau. I spent 4 hours on hold, transferred between 7 different departments, before finally reaching someone who would talk to me. I explained the situation. The clerk sounded sympathetic but said, "Sir, if the violations are in our system, they're valid. You need to file a formal appeal. I have proof the car doesn't match. I have proof Mr. Whitaker sold his car 12 years ago. I have proof he's been blind and hasn't driven in over a decade. Then the appeal should be straightforward. File it online." I tried. The appeal form required documentation that Thomas didn't have. Proof of vehicle sale, we had that. Proof of current vehicle ownership, he didn't own a car, difficult for a blind man living alone. But the system also required something else, a $75 filing fee per ticket, 67 tickets times $75, $5,025 just to appeal. Thomas was living on $1,847 a month. He couldn't afford that. The system wasn't designed for justice. It was designed to extract money and make fighting back financially impossible. Day 4, Friday, 8:30 p.m., I was furious. I started searching online for similar cases. And that's when I found them: news articles from other cities, Reddit posts, legal forums. Dozens of people describing the same thing: tickets for cars they didn't own, violations at impossible times, parking enforcement officers who seemed to target specific individuals. And a pattern emerged. Most victims were elderly, disabled, or low income, people least able to fight back. This wasn't about Thomas. This was systematic. Day 5/10. 0 a.m. I received a response to my second FOIA request. The list of vehicles Officer M. Rodriguez had ticketed in the past 2 years. I opened the spreadsheet. My heart started pounding. Officer M. Rodriguez had written 847 tickets in 24 months. That's about 35 tickets per month, which is normal for parking enforcement. But when I sorted by license plate, I found something extraordinary. 43 different vehicles had multiple tickets from Officer Rodriguez at physically impossible locations and times. The same pattern I'd seen with Thomas's plate. I cross-referenced those plates with DMV records. 38 of those plates had been surrendered or marked as destroyed years ago. They were ghost plates, fabricated plates, and someone was using them to generate fake violations. The theory forms: here's what I believed was happening. Someone in the Parking Violations Bureau had access to old, surrendered license plate numbers. They were creating fake violations for those plates, knowing that the original owners, mostly elderly people who'd sold their cars years ago, wouldn't know how to fight back. The fines would go unpaid, penalties would accumulate, and eventually the city would collect through liens or judgments. But who was doing this, and why? Day 5, 2:30 p.m. I called the 8 victims I'd identified from the FOIA data whose contact information I could find through public records. 3 answered. All 3 told me the same story Thomas had. Tickets for cars they no longer owned, violations at impossible locations, threats of liens. All 3 had paid something, anywhere from $800 to $4,200, just to make it stop. One woman, 79 years old, had paid $3,400 for tickets on a car she'd donated to charity 6 years earlier. When I asked if they'd noticed anything unusual about the tickets, 2 of them said the same thing. Most of their tickets were written by the same officer, badge 2847. Officer M. Rodriguez, 5, Saturday, 6 p.m. I tried to find Officer M. Rodriguez. I called the parking enforcement office. I asked to speak with them. The supervisor told me, "We don't have an Officer M. Rodriguez with badge number 2847. I read the badge number from the tickets. Sir, that badge number hasn't been active in 8 years. It belonged to an officer who retired in 2016. My blood went cold. Officer M. Rodriguez didn't exist. Someone was using a retired officer's badge number to write fake tickets. Day 6, Sunday, 9 a.m. had enough evidence to go public or go to the police. But I wanted one more piece. Who was actually entering these fake tickets into the system? I filed an emergency FOIA request asking for the user login information associated with the tickets written by Officer M. Rodriguez, badge 2847. The city had 48 hours to respond to emergency request. 6 Sunday, 7:15 p.m. I got the response, and what I saw made everything clear. All 847 tickets attributed to M. Rodriguez had been entered into the system by the same user account, Eben47. That's not a parking enforcement officer account. That's an administrative account. Someone with back-end access to the entire parking violations database. I cross-referenced that username with the city's employee directory, public record. Xman 47 belonged to Trevor Santos, a data entry clerk in the Parking Violations Bureau. He'd worked there for 9 years. Trevor Santos had access to old license plate records, surrendered plates, the violation database to create fake tickets, retired badge numbers to make tickets look legitimate, victim contact information, to know who to target. He'd been running this scam for at least 2 years, probably longer. He targeted elderly and disabled people because they were least likely to fight back. He used old plates because those people no longer thought about those vehicles. When victims paid the fines, the money went into the city's general fund. But I suspected Trevor had a partner, someone who was either splitting the money or benefiting some other way. Day 6, Sunday, 9:45 p.m. I compiled everything into a 47-page report. Timeline of violations, DMV records proving plates were surrendered, photos showing wrong vehicles, impossibility analysis, tickets at multiple locations, responses showing fake officer user account evidence pointing to Trevor Santos testimonies from other victims than I sent it to. The local FBI field office, fraud, the state attorney general, government corruption, the city inspector general, internal investigation, 3 local news stations, Thomas's daughter in Oregon, so she'd know what was happening, and I waited. 2 FBI agents showed up at Thomas's house at 8:47 a.m. They interviewed him for 90 minutes. They took copies of all his documents. They told him, "Sir, you're a victim of fraud. You don't owe this money. We're opening an investigation." By noon, the local ABC affiliate had called me. They wanted to interview Thomas and me for the 6 p.m. news. By 3 p.m., the city issued a statement. "We are aware of allegations regarding irregularities in parking violation records. We take these allegations seriously and are conducting an internal review." Translation: they were panicking. Monday, 6 p.m. Thomas and I appeared on local news. The anchor asked Thomas, "How did this make you feel?" Thomas's answer destroyed me. "I thought maybe I'd done something wrong and forgotten because of my age. I thought maybe I was going crazy." This young man believed me when I couldn't believe myself. The story went viral locally. By Tuesday morning, 43 more victims had contacted the news station with similar stories. Within 2 weeks, Trevor Santos was arrested and charged with fraud, identity theft, and computer crimes. Bail set at $100,000. An internal investigation found that Santos had created 847 fake violations over 4 years, generating approximately $340,000 in fraudulent fines. The FBI discovered Santos had a partner, his supervisor, who'd been splitting the money by creating fake refunds to shell accounts. Both were indicted on federal charges. The city voided all 1,847 fake violations and issued refunds to every victim they could identify. Thomas's $14,680 debt was erased. The city also paid him $5,000 in compensation and issued a formal apology. 41 other victims recovered a combined 120. Zero in wrongful fines. The head of the Parking Violations Bureau was fired for failure to detect the fraud. The city implemented new verification systems requiring photo review and GPS confirmation for all violations. 3 moves Slater Trevor Santos pleaded guilty. Sentenced to 6 years in federal prison plus restitution, Thomas is still living in his house. His daughter visits more often now. Local volunteers help him with paperwork, and he keeps a framed copy of the news article on his wall, next to the photos of his wife. The headline, "Local Man Solves Fraud Case City Missed for Years." Here's what this case taught me and what you need to know if you ever face something like this. Lesson 1. Question everything. When Thomas first got those tickets, he assumed the government was right and he was wrong. That's what they count on. If something doesn't make sense, it probably isn't true. Trust your gut. Lesson 2. Document everything. The bill of sale from 2012 saved Thomas. If he'd thrown that away, proving he sold the car would have been nearly impossible. Keep records of major transactions forever. Scan them up. Lesson 3. FOIA requests are powerful. I'm not a lawyer or a journalist, but I filed 17 FOIA requests and got the evidence I needed. In most states, government records are public. You have a right to see them. Use it. Lesson 4. Look for patterns. One ticket could be a mistake. 67 tickets with the same officer's badge. That's a pattern. Patterns reveal systems. Systems reveal fraud. Lesson 5. You don't have to be an expert. I'm just a person who got angry and decided to help. I didn't have special training. I just followed the evidence logically, asked questions, and refused to accept that's just how it works. Lesson 6. Publicity is pressure. The city ignored Thomas for months. But the moment the news got involved, the FBI opened a case within hours. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. If you're facing institutional fraud, make noise. Lesson 7. One person can make a difference. I'm not special. I didn't have connections or power. I just had time and anger and stubbornness. That was enough to shut down a 4-year fraud operation and save 41 people. If I can do it, you can do it. The last time I visited Thomas, he made me coffee and we sat in his living room surrounded by photos of his late wife. He told me something I'll never forget. You know what the worst part was? Not the money, not even the fear of losing my house. It was that nobody believed me. I'd call the city and they'd talk to me like I was confused or senile. I'd try to explain I couldn't have driven because I'm blind, and they'd say, "That's what everyone says, sir." For 6 months, I thought maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe I had driven and forgotten. Maybe my blindness made me unreliable. Maybe I couldn't trust my own memory anymore. You gave me back something more valuable than $14,000. You gave me back my reality. You believed me when I couldn't believe myself. I think about that a lot. How many Thomas Whitakers are out there right now? How many elderly people, disabled people, poor people are being crushed by systems designed to exploit them? How many are blaming themselves, thinking they're confused or at fault, when really they're victims of deliberate fraud? This case ended well because I happened to walk by at the right moment and had the time and anger to pursue it. But what about all the times no one walks by? That's why I'm telling you this story. If this story made you angry, if it made you want to help, if it made you realize that one person really can change things, do 3 things for me right now. First, smash that like button. This video needs to reach people who might be facing similar fraud. The algorithm only spreads it if you engage. Second, comment "I believe them" as if you think what happened to him was wrong. And tell me, have you or someone you know ever been targeted by fraudulent fines or tickets? Share your story. Sunlight is disinfectant. Third, subscribe, because next week I'm investigating something even bigger. A towing company that's been illegally impounding cars and charging $3,200 in fees, and why the city lets them do it. If you think this case made you angry, wait until you see what I found. Share this video. Send it to your parents, your grandparents, anyone who might face something like this. Teach them that the government says so doesn't mean the government is right. FOIA requests are free. Questions are free. Believing victims is free. Thomas Whitaker was 86 years old, blind and alone, and he almost lost everything because no one believed him until one person did. Be that one person for someone else. Document everything. Question authority. Trust your gut. And if something doesn't make sense, don't assume you're wrong. Assume someone's lying, because sometimes they are.